Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Speak for Yourself podcast. My name is Casey, and I am your host. And I am so glad that you're here joining us on a Saturday night. My guest tonight is Mr. Joshua Smith. He is the 2024 Libertarian Presidential Candidate, or one of them. And he is also the host of the remind me the name of it.
Break the cycle, buddy.
Yeah,
right there.
I had it. I had it on the tip of my tongue.
That's all right.
I was like, break. Yeah. Anyway, man, I'm so happy that we're finally getting the chance to speak.
Finally.
I've said it a couple times on Twitter or in DMs or whatever. I really feel like you and I are like kindred spirits. I'll see something that you put out there, and I will completely 100% agree with most of the things that you say, more than probably anybody else in the liberty sphere, which is kind of interesting, I guess.
Sure.
It's just something that I've noticed. So I'm, glad that we're finally having the opportunity to speak. So I want to start off. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and, outside of the liberty stuff, just about you and maybe your family?
Sure, man. I'm a crazy ass dad of 7. We got 7 kids in the house with 1 on the way. Well, sorry, I shouldn't say 7.
Been getting busy.
Yeah, we have 6 in the house currently that are 11 and under. I have 2 boys that are 2 and 1, and we have another one on the way. So we'll have 3 boys that are 3 and under come December, and then we have 11 who's going to be 12 this month, and then 10 who's going to be 11 this month. And then we also have a just turned 9-year-old and an almost 6-year-old. And then of course I have a 19-year-old daughter that just moved out recently, who I was blessed enough to get full custody of back in 2020. And she has 2 kids. So I'm a grandfather times 2 as well. Yeah, it's a crazy family dynamic, but it's really it's a labor of love that I think most people, even the people who say they wouldn't, kind of envy it. It's one of those things. Like, I come home from work every day and there's no lacking of love as soon as I walk through the door from work. If the kids are too bored to talk to me, the dog will always say what's up. You know what I mean? And so, it's a really cool family life. Of course, we adopted 2 of them. They're my oldest daughter's 2 younger siblings. When I got full custody of my daughter, they needed a place to go. And my daughter had been kind of taking care of them. And so we didn't want to split them up. That we didn't think that'd be fair, not just to them, but also to my daughter, who, that was her 2 younger siblings. And so I went down and filed for an emergency temporary guardianship. And then I went back down a month later and got permanent guardianship. And then we worked on the adoption after that. And so, yeah, man, it's a lot. But man, I wouldn't trade it for the world. That's for sure.
Do you have a favorite age and then an age that you found it to be most difficult?
Oh man. My 12-year-old, my soon to be 12-year-old is definitely my boy. He's definitely the most difficult. Not because, he's like crazy or anything like that, but because he reminds me of myself much, even though it's not my biological son. But he does a lot of the same things I did when I was his age, stuff that got me in a lot of trouble. I mean, I grew up rough in a rough neighborhood. I did some juvenile hall time, actually quite a bit of it, work camps and group homes and stuff like that. And so when we got them, he was going down that same path, but maybe even worse at a much younger age, 9 years old, and I see so much of me in him, and it's hard for me because I want to like scream at him and be like, listen, dude, I've been where you're going, knock it off,
just trust me.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's really great having a kid that's that old and has actually got a lot of street smarts. I mean, really, we could talk about all kinds of stuff with the kid, and he's very smart. And it was really cool seeing him go from never have been to school at 9 years old. He'd never been into any classroom or any kind of homeschooling or anything.
Wow.
Except for, I think, part of kindergarten and 1 day of first grade. And so when we first got him, the state required that we did public school with them. It was one of the ways that we were able to get those 2 kids. And so we found what's called a community choice charter school. which is much, much better than the regular public schools because you have a lot more say. It's still kind of families involved, hands-on, which is nice in the curriculum and all that. And so we got to sit down and do like a full plan for him. And we were worried for him at first, like how's he gonna maintain, how are we gonna get him involved, how are we gonna get him integrated into the curriculum, and is he gonna be able to start off in fourth grade, or is he gonna have to go back to the second grade, or and he did some testing, and they decided that they wanted him to start in fourth grade, and man, he could not write when we got him at all. At 9 years old, he did not know how to write letters. He didn't know how to do any math, but he could read because the life that they had come from, he would spend a lot of time on his own teaching himself how to read books. And he was so far advanced at reading, but could not write. And it was such a weird thing, but now he's starting seventh grade this month, the end of this month. And, he's right on track to where he's supposed to be. He's an athlete now. He plays basketball. He does wrestling. He starts football this month. And when we got him, he either was reading or sat in front of video games all day long. And so it's pretty cool to see, that change. You want to say, oh yeah, I did that, but he really put a lot of effort into becoming who he is. And so it's really cool to see that too. Even though he's my hardest child, he's also one of the most fun and rewarding children to watch, because he's grown so much over the last 3 years. Of course, my favorite age is by far my 2-year-old, because he's just absolutely insane. It's like dealing with a really small drunk person all the time. And he's very cute and loving, and both my little boys are very sweet and loving monsters. So
yeah, my son will be 2 in 2 months.
Yeah, 2 is fun. It's a fun age. He'll be 3 in December, so he's kind of pushing past the initial 2 phase, and he's getting more into the like learning and asking questions phase, which is kind of cool to be able to start. This kid who was just a toddler and a baby is now asking you questions and learning, and so that's always a fun phase too. But I love them all, man. They all have their own cool like little personalities, and it's really fun to watch and have that many around and get to be a part of their growing and learning. It's really fun to do. And, our next step is buying the farm, homeschooling all the kids, doing all the organic anarchist stuff that we want to do on our farm. And so that's the next goal. And that's the push that we're doing right now. And, I got on Tuesday, I have my real estate test, so I'll be able to buy and sell real estate even for myself, which will be nice. And so, yeah, dude, that's the thing. We're going to have them running around on the farm barefoot and riding horses and dirt bikes and growing food and learning at home and doing all the cool stuff that, kids are supposed to do back in the day before they instituted these terrible policies like the Department of Education and tried to, curriculum everybody to death and keep everybody the same. So I'm excited, man.
My wife and I have been considering adoption for quite some time now. I think it's one of the most selfless things people can do. So kind of what led you and your wife to adopting?
Well, it was an easy decision for me. And in fact, it's so funny because my wife, this is back when we had first met. We got together March of 2020. And by October of 2020, we had my oldest daughter, who was pregnant at the time at 15 years old, and her 2 siblings. So it was a very quick thing. But I've been blessed by God with the most amazing woman you could ever imagine having in your life. When I met her, she was basically like, I'm an anarchist. I want 10 kids. I want to homeschool them all, and I want to live off the grid. And I was like, you're amazing. I love you, and So we already had Mateo, who's going to be 3 soon, on the way at this point. And I got the call, hey, you can come down to Arkansas and pick up your daughter. Cool. So I got off the phone and we were laying in bed and I looked over and I said, hey, because I'd already moved to Iowa. We were already living together and stuff, it's really fast because of COVID. And it was like, I was in California, she was in Iowa. I was like, I'm never going to see you if I don't just come out there now, So I came out here and with a suitcase and a backpack, and we've made a whole life here in the last, almost 4 years now. But, and so I said, I just got a call from my ex-wife's cousin saying that I can come down to Arkansas and pick up my daughter. She said, great. When do we leave? It was no question whatsoever. She was ready to go. I said, by the way, she's got 2 siblings who are at the time 9 and 6. and they're going to go to foster care, and they're going to be lost in the system forever. And we have an opportunity to maybe get them. I have a lawyer down there who's said that he's pretty confident that we can do a kinship guardianship, at least temporarily, maybe permanently. What do you think about that? She said, great. When do we leave? And
That's awesome.
yeah, and that was Wednesday. And on Friday, I met her. We had a little Hyundai, I think, or Nissan. It was a Nissan Sentra, like a little almost 4-seater, but really a 5-seater. And I got off work on Friday or Thursday. I got off work on Thursday. So this was Wednesday. I got off work on Thursday. She was already at the car dealership trading in the car for a minivan. I met her at the car dealership. We got in the minivan. We went back to the apartment. We took all the old car stuff out of the van and headed to Arkansas. And we got to Arkansas Friday, picked them up, and brought them back on Saturday. It was that quick. And then like I said, I went down. That was October. And then in November, I went back down and went back to court and did the permanent guardianship. And so she never questioned it. She was totally fine with it from the very get-go. It was like, if I hadn't had already wanted to marry this woman, I definitely wanted to after that. She was just
perfect. For sure,
amazing. And and she's great, and she's a great mom, and she's she's an organic, crunchy mom, which is great too. Like, my kids get sick, and I'm like, give them NyQuil and Tylenol, and she's like, no, I got this root and this tree bark, and it's gonna make them better in 24 hours. And at first I'd be like, yeah, okay, and then I'd wake up and the kids would be fine. I'd be like, how did you do this, you witch?
Some garlic that's been soaked in honey for 3 days.
Dude, the garlic tincture is the first thing she runs to when everybody gets sick. And it's amazing. And I even use it now too. I've gotten away from a lot of the pharmaceuticals and stuff because of her. And we have this like ultra immune, Dr. Christopher's ultra immune garlic formula that, man, the second you take it, you start feeling whatever's in your lungs start clearing out. And yeah, she's really changed my idea of like healthcare big time. And she studied all. She went through, she had some autoimmune stuff, and she went through all this, Eastern medicine and what do they call it? Holistic mm-hmm. stuff. And she even did chelation and had all of her mercury fillings removed and replaced, and healed herself, man. And she had been injured by a vaccine. And so she's also one of the founders of an organization here called Informed Choice Iowa. That's is the lobby group for healthcare freedom. And so she's just really perfect for me, man. It changed my life in a lot of ways, but it was also exactly what I needed at exactly the time I needed it. And, I couldn't imagine ever being with anybody else. So I'm just a very blessed man. She helped me find my faith again too, which was really cool. So it's just a lot of cool stuff, man. It was one of those things where, the snowball rolls downhill, and it started real small. And then, in 3 years, we had this great, big, beautiful life that we worked hard to get. So I'm happy. I'm a happy man.
That's awesome. Yeah. The next thing I want to get into is, can you tell me a little bit about your journey to libertarianism, how you found it, and we'll kind of go from there.
Sure. So I was 17 in 2001 when 9/11 happened. And I would consider myself, I was a little punk kid at 17 years old, but I was still in my head, I was like, yeah, conservatives, Republicans, and George Bush, George Bush is cool. And like many Americans in 2001, I was very upset with the attack on my countrymen. 9/11 was definitely a turning point for this country in way more ways than one, and I decided that I needed to go and protect my country. They had attacked me, go over there and fight them because of what they've done here. And so I joined the military right after 9/11, not very long at all. And by, 2002, I was in the Persian Gulf on a very famous battle group on a very famous carrier, which carried out the shock and awe campaign in March of 2003. And I was a big part of that, in Iraq. And I remember we dropped, our specific ship dropped 1.8 million tons or something like that of ordnance on Baghdad during the shock and awe campaign in a week, less than a week, and just completely decimated the place. And a lot of people for a lot of people, especially at that age, 17, 18 years old, to you, the Middle East is just the desert. It's just all desert, right? You know, there's no one that lives camels, and it's, you know, deserts, and there's no water. And I've seen it on the TV, you know, but Baghdad is not like that. Baghdad is literally like a giant city with people who get up and go to work every day. It's like, it'd be like us doing the same shit to Oakland, California, or, you know, Chicago or something, right? Just dropping tons of ordnance on these people. And I just remember feeling really shitty about it, man. I mean, that's the best way I can put it, is I felt really shitty when I understood what was going on. We dropped these big, huge drums of leaflets in Farsi or whatever. I think it's Farsi that they speak there, but essentially telling everybody, leave your house. You got, you know, 72 hours to leave your house. We're going to start dropping bombs. And I'll never forget those freaking leaflets, dude. We dropped millions of them all over Baghdad and surrounding areas from jets. And I'll never get that out of my head, thinking, man, there's like kids there and family pets, and people have dreams and shit, you know, like they want to start their own construction companies, and, you know, and it was such an eye-opening experience for me at 18 years old. And I'm sure, you know, I like my, you know, my shipmates and stuff at the time, probably a lot of them weren't having those same feelings, you know, but you come to realize later in life that a lot of guys did think that was wrong and not cool. But I also remember having this like kind of conundrum where I was like, why are we fighting Iraq? You know what I mean? I was in the Gulf when George Bush declared war, so I saw it just happen all around me, you know? I just remember being like, why are we at war with Iraq? Like, I came over here to fight what I thought was Pakistani nationals via Saudi Arabia, who were hiding out in Afghanistan, and there's like 2 full battle groups in the Gulf and 2 more in the Mediterranean at war with Iraq, and they had nothing to do with 9/11 at all, you know. And so, you know, I was a little like, what the hell's going on here, you know? And then you come to find out that the weapons of mass destruction thing was all propaganda and not real, you know. And you start to feel really bad about some of the things that you took part in. And, you know, anybody with a conscience and moral values and stuff like that has to kind of wonder, like, at some point, are we the good guys or were we the baddies, right? And it starts to get kind of rough. And then you know, as you get older, you start to look at history and you start to understand some of these wars, you know, since World War II, and the constant meddling in the Middle East, and you know, these destabilization of every single country surrounding Iran, and the fingers in the chest of Russia, and it was just constant, you know. And so I became this pretty staunch anti-war activist. In fact, when I got back from my first deployment, I was just jaded, dude. I was like, I don't want to be in the military anymore, you know. And I was like gung-ho, patriotic, like ready to fight wars. And so when I got out in 2005, and then I was still Republican, but I just remember thinking, like, the Republican Party is bloodthirsty warhawks, man. You know, this is the party of John McCain and George W. Bush at this point, and that was it. And about 2006, I started really looking elsewhere. In 2007, I found Ron Paul, and that man changed my entire life. You know, he was saying exactly what I felt. I didn't know economics at this point, right? But I knew that war didn't serve us any good in America anymore. I knew that it wasn't a good thing. I knew that we were wasting a lot of money on it. And that was the first time I heard the term libertarian at all, because Ron Paul will tell you he's a libertarian. He'll tell you that. He'll tell you that he's a lifetime member of the Libertarian Party, paid his dues in gold in 1987, you know. He just happened to win as a Republican, and he stayed in Congress as a Republican. And probably if he had done like Amash and switched his party, he wouldn't have stayed in Congress as long as he did. And I get that. But Ron Paul really spoke to me about all kinds of things. I mean, he spoke to me about the wars. He spoke to me about economics. He opened my eyes to the horrors of the Federal Reserve and how all of this warfare state was funded through the Federal Reserve, and how it caused all these middle class crises that everybody was going through, you know, all the way through 2008, especially. And it was very eye-opening. And so I couldn't imagine working for any other candidate for president in 2008. And that's who I started street teaming for in California, a very hard place to do so. And I pushed and pushed and pushed and worked on his campaign. And I watched the Republican Party blackball this guy to death. They were arresting Ron Paul delegates at the convention in Louisiana. I mean, it was ugly. It was really bad. The media had a total blackout. And he was served every time he got up on a stage in front of anybody. He was serving everybody truth bombs. He talking about blowback and the reserve and the war on drugs. And I mean, everything he was saying was very, very hard to debate. And that's why they had to blackball him. And so that was when the Republican Party left me. When I realized that my ideas were no longer welcome in the Republican Party, I wasn't going to be a Republican anymore. And so I was, bounced out, and I was kind of doing my own thing, trying to start some publications. I had started reading Murray Rothbard, who absolutely radicalized me to the max, and I started moving on to a bunch of other people too. Of course, I read like F.A. Hayek and so many different authors. I got into Spooner, of course, started learning that the Constitution hadn't really done its job. And so in 2010, for the first time, I joined the Libertarian Party. I swear, I always credit Adam Kokesh with this. I was almost positive it was Adam Kokesh with the Iraq vets or veterans against the Iraq war, talking about the Libertarian Party. So I joined, and I tried to give them money and ask them what I could do. I was this fired up activist who was pissed off at both the other parties, and they just stonewalled me. They never sent me any information at all about what I could do in California to help them out. They didn't tell me there was county and state affiliates or any of this shit. I didn't know anything about any of that, and so I stopped my donations after like 3 months, but stayed a registered Libertarian voter. But I never voted. I only voted for Ron Paul. And then in 2012, I wrote in Ron Paul. And then 2015 is when I really kind of started paying attention to the party again. And of course, the lead up to Trump Hillary was such a shit show for anybody who was not one of those two old party people, and so I started watching Gary Johnson, and I was like, oh, this guy's all right. And in fact, the funniest thing I'm going to say on the show is that I was watching Nick Sarwark speeches in 2016.
Oh, Jesus.
That were based, bro. They were based. They were so tough and hardcore and like ready to go to war with the Republicans and Democrats. And like, he was good. He was really good and fired.
What happened?
I don't know, man. But it wasn't long after that. 2016, I joined my state party. I was living in Washington State at the time. And I joined my state party, became a region rep for the southern part of Washington, right across the bridge from Portland. And I started building state of county affiliates for the first time. I started learning how to lead a political party, And that's around the time that Nick Sarwark kind of fell off the deep end. He started talking shit about Tom and Eric July and Dave Smith and Tom and Scott Horton, for God's sakes. Like, how do you talk shit about Scott Horton of all the people? He's like the biggest sweetheart in the world, and he knows more than all of us combined. And just how, and so I started calling
one of the most anti-war guys there is.
Yeah, this was 2017. And so I started calling around some bigger name people that I knew in the movement. Hey, man, you got to run for chair of this party. We can't have this guy. This guy can't be representing us, and everybody's kind of like laughing at me. Oh, that's the most successful chair the party's ever had. They got 4 million votes for Gary Johnson under his rule. And they're the highest membership they've been in years, and this and that. And I was like, all right, well, listen, if none of you guys are going to do it, I'm going to do it. And nobody knew who the fuck I was. Nobody knew who I was at all. I had a little publication called Think Liberty at the time. It had about 15,000 followers and, pretty good daily traffic to the website. So I wrote up an intent to run statement and announced that I was running for chair, thinking it would just be a challenge to the gatekeepers, to the old guard. And man, I took off. I went to 30-something states that year. I shook hands all over the country. I spoke behind Ron Paul in Omaha at the Omaha Roads to Freedom Unconvention. I shut down the ballroom there right before Ron Paul's dinner. It was like 45-minute speech. I'd never been a public speaker at all. And we ended up getting like 12% of the vote for national chair. And then I ended up becoming an at-large. So I ended up being on the national committee for a term, ran again in 2020 and barely lost. I mean, by a couple of percentage, and ended up as an at-large again. So I did a whole another term as an at-large. And then of course that brings us to where we are now, where after another term as an at-large, I ran for vice chair, won vice chair. And then, 6 months later, I had resigned, which is pretty wild. And I did put out a whole resignation letter. I think people at this point kind of understand why I resigned. I didn't do all that work to show up to the top of the hill and find out we were still at the bottom of the hill, And so, yeah, man, that's where I'm at today. And I'm still philosophically very, very, very radical when it comes to my views. I hate the federal government almost entirely, but I'm running for president to kind of try and I don't know how you put it, but like I'm not running to take power and use power, although I guess I am in some aspects. But it's also to relinquish power in a lot of aspects, right? Like there's so much power over our daily lives from the federal government that it has to be somebody going there and turn back the dial. And so that's why I'm running this campaign, man. And hopefully, I don't think I'm going to win the presidency. I'm under no illusion that I'm going to be the president in 2024. But what we can do is make an impact. We can try to get 5% of the vote, become a major party and start, kind of challenging these other people in some big races. And it makes your candidate, whatever party, have to govern the way that they campaign, right? And that's an important aspect of politics. If they can campaign any way they want and then govern any way they want, like you're never going to get an honest politician ever. So that's where we're at today, man. That's how I got here.
Awesome. Well, so I want to talk a little about your run and your campaign. Your slogan is, "I guess I'll do it." And for such a reluctant slogan, you seem very intentional about running and, pretty gung ho about it. So can you go into a little bit about why you're the guy that should run on the Libertarian ticket? What are some differences between you and some of the people that I've already announced?
Sure. Well, I think, I have some positives that the other candidates don't, and that's I don't have to play nice with the left. I don't have to play nice with anybody that I don't want to play nice with because I'm kind of the dark horse. You know what I mean? Like nobody saw me coming. Nobody saw me coming. I don't really care what people think about me. The people that know me already know me. I mean, people know me. People know what my views are on things. Especially in this movement. I'm not saying outside the movement, but I have started building some inroads there. And I think I appeal to a much larger swath of blue collar, middle class Americans than some of these other guys trying to play pretend politician. I think that, I've lived your plight, dude. I was a construction worker, dog. I talk like you. I act like you. I've been through the same monetary issues that you've been through. And here I am saying, hey, you know what? I guess I'll do it. Because there's nobody else like me stepping up, not in the Libertarian Party, not in the two old parties. It's all people that have come from money, never lived the life, never had to struggle. They don't understand your plight, man. And I think that that's, where I really, really differ from especially my competitors in the party currently. I think these guys none of them have lived the struggle. One of them came from the George Bush administration and was a cop for many years. One of them's kind of a trust fund kid from, the South. I don't know much about Lars. I can't say anything about Lars Mapstead. I don't know very much about him, so I can't speak to him, but they just haven't lived that life, man. And I think that that's what it's going to take to change the face of politics is more people that have lived the life like me stepping up and saying, hey, you're kind of fucking us over every 4 years, man. It's time to change some things. And I think that I'll do that. I think I'm brash. I think I'm loud. I think I'll make enough noise to get noticed. I'm very annoying when it comes to breaking down your door. So you listen to me. People know that about me. I don't just take no for an answer when it comes to trying to beat down a door for debates or any of that kind of stuff. I'm going to keep going until you see me, but yeah, I wanted somebody good that was going to give the message, the way that I would want it given, to the public to run for president in the Libertarian Party this term. The Mises Caucus and the work that they've done and the work that I did, I didn't want that to be for naught. It was a lot of work, dude. Like I said, I traveled to 50 states almost over the last 6 years. I put a lot of time up away from my family. I lost places to live and jobs and all kinds of shit to get us to that mountain. And I wanted somebody to take the torch and run for president and take that on a 50-state media tour. Because that's what the presidential election is for the Libertarian Party. It's not we're going to win the presidency. It's we're going to win some hearts and minds, get that 5% and message to the public. And I didn't see anybody doing it. I was waiting for Dave Smith. I would have loved to see Dave Smith do it. That would have been great. That man, there's not many people that message better than him. And when I kind of came to terms with the fact that Dave was probably not looking at the party the same way I was, going, nope, not going to do it. There's not going to be enough support there. I said, you know what, someone's got to do it. And there's another aspect to this whole ordeal that the other candidates need to understand, especially if they win the nomination. The party numbers are down. The party fundraising is down. There's not going to be a lot of support for a presidential candidate in 2024. I'm sure we'll get an influx like we typically do right before a presidential election, but I'm not thinking it's going to be as big as typically it would be. And we're not going to have ballot access in a lot of states. And typically the party, what they do, we spend millions of dollars every 4 years on ballot access in several states that are hard to keep ballot access in. Or you can have a president that runs a campaign big enough to get to those states and get enough signatures and stuff like that to get on the ballot. So whoever the presidential candidate is, through November is going to have to do a lot of work in those states that don't have ballot access, because I don't think the party is going to get it done. And so I know how to do that. I've run ballot access fundraisers. I've helped petition for ballot access. I've traveled around to several of the hard ballot access states already. And so I have that going for me, that administrative luck, I guess you could call it there. But I think I stand apart from my opponents in the party, especially by being brave, by saying what we're all thinking, instead of kind of trying to play politician. I'm not going to play politician. I'm not a politician. I understand how politics work. It's an ugly, dirty game, and 99% of the people I've met in politics are absolute shitty people. I promise you, in all the parties. But I'm not going to play those games. I'm going to go out there and tell everybody like it is, and I'm going to meet people where they're at, and I'm going to tell them, hey, these are the things that are fucking you over in your wallet, in your property, in your livelihoods. This is what's doing it, and I could show you with proof and statistics that this is how it's happening, and this is what I would like to change, and these are how I would change those things. That's the important thing coming from libertarians too, right? So many candidates go out there and they talk, in these platitudes. If you read Chase Oliver's platform, it's all platitudes. There's no plan there. There's no, hey, this, 72% of fatherless children are incarcerated, or 72% of incarcerated children are from fatherless homes. There's no stats there. You don't see any stats. It doesn't tell you which gun laws that he wants to abolish right away on day one, And so I'm giving actual, like, backed up plans on how I want to go about this. I've talked with legit gun groups about which policies the president can get rid of with an executive order. I know which ones we can repeal, and I know that NFA is one of those. I know that the NICS is one of those. I know that we can get rid of the school gun ban from 1993. There's a lot of stuff that I can do as president, and I can talk to those groups about. And I have a plan for that stuff. And so libertarians got to stop talking in platitudes and philosophical theory, right? And start talking about what they can actually get done and what you can actually accomplish if you were to win these positions, because that's what people really want to hear. They want to hear, are you able to do the things to fix the things that are hurting my family, right? And if you just go out there and start giving them an economics lesson, they don't want to hear that shit. They want to hear what you're going to do economically to make their wallet fatter. Everybody wants that. Everybody wants their, more of their money and more of their property and more, better jobs. And so you got to have a plan for all that stuff, man. And that's what I've rolled out. And I think that's what my platform speaks to, is like, we have an actual plan to get this stuff done. If you people are crazy enough to put somebody in the White House that is not establishment at all, we'll do those things, at least until the CIA takes me out.
Well, before we get into like the nuts and bolts of all the platform issues, I wanted to ask, what was your wife and family's reaction to you wanting to run?
My kids are stoked. They're like, my dad's a presidential candidate. What? They don't care. My wife's she's halfway there. She's not stoked about it, because after the vice chair run and when I resigned, I was like, that's it, sweetie. I'm done with politics. It's been too much for us. And so I filed, and I actually filed down here in my basement. I didn't say anything because I wasn't initially, it was kind of like a troll to run. But then I started really putting together a good team and thinking about all the positives that could come from this. And so I went up and told her, and so it was like, at first I was like, I don't know how serious it's going to be, but we'll see, sweetie. And she's like, oh, great. Here we go again. It was like that. But she's all right with it, and she's like, well, as long as I build your podcast,
Yeah, good.
But no, she's totally cool with it. Not total. I wouldn't say totally cool with it, but she's halfway cool with it for sure. She's not gonna leave me for it. So that's an important step. But she's not gonna like it all the way. So
another thing I wanted to get into before we got into the platform issues was you mentioned that she had brought you back to your faith, and so I wanted to hear a little bit about that and a little bit about how your um, faith has affected your political views.
Sure. Well, I grew up, I've talked about it several times on the show. I grew up with a Catholic grandfather, very devout Catholic who went to mass every single Sunday his entire life. Midnight mass on Christmas, all that stuff constantly. My mom grew up Catholic as well, doing Reformation, all that stuff. But I did not grow up Catholic. I grew up with my mother, who had kind of gone to this non-denominational evangelical kind of, not mega church, but like, community churches, the good old community church where everybody's kind of wearing jeans and a button-up shirt. And so I grew up going to those, and I was, a faithful child. And I got into this, this hard teen years where I was really angry at a lot of things in the world. And one of those things that I was very angry at was God. God, why would you put me in these circumstances? God, why would you do this stuff to me? Of course, it was always myself doing it, right? It wasn't God per se.
Sure.
And then after the military, I was just kind of jaded on the thought of religion. And so I tell everybody, well, I'm an agnostic. I'm not, I don't dare say what's actually out there. But in my heart, I always knew, right? Like I always kind of was like, I know that God is there and I've seen him work in my life and I'm being stupid, but I was angry. And I was a very, very angry kid and young adult for a long time. And it had been about 2 or 3 years prior to meeting my wife where I was actually kind of coming to terms again with my faith and started kind of going head first into even like a more orthodox like thought when it comes to Christianity and get back to the basics. And I was watching society kind of crumble as this godless heathens, and then I found my wife, and she was very religious, is still very religious, and goes to church every Sunday. And our kids go to Awana, and I guess she helped me see the beauty in it all again, which is really important. It's when you're angry, you look for all the bad in religion, because there have been some bad things, that have come out of all kinds of different faiths and opinions on faiths, especially because, when you get down to the nuts and bolts of faith, it really is God's going to judge everybody and you need to, turn the other cheek a lot of times. And when you're not looking for the beauty and you're only looking for the anger of faith and religion, you're going to find only the ugly, you're only going to find the ugly side of it, and you're only going to find the anger. And she helped me find beauty in a lot of things, not just my faith, but like life in general and being a parent. And she's taught me so much. But one of those things was reminding me how beautiful my faith in Jesus Christ was. And, it changed my whole life, dude. It really did. And I got back to where I was having, conversations with God again and asking him to, lead me and tell me where to go and how to be a better leader in my home and how to better be a parent and, how to go about trying to change the world in the ways that I wanted to change it. And I watched it work, and it really just, it's one of those things that's instilled now forever. It's never going to go away. I know that, I'm never going to fall away from it again. And it's been really nice, man. And I do have a lot more orthodox beliefs now, I'd say, a lot more strict and devout than I used to be, much more conservative religion than I used to be. So I watched some of these, some of these churches doing some things that look like heresy to me,
Oh man.
Yeah. And
Don't get me started.
It's rough to watch. But I go to a really great church that teaches the scripture the way it's supposed to be taught and taught. And they say good things. And we go to another church that does like a nighttime service. Sometimes it's like new wave, but like very conservative new wave, which is kind of cool. I had never seen anything like that. And they got a really good band, and the kids like the children's program and stuff. So, but yeah, man, it's been nice. It's been really fun. And, I got to work every other Sunday at my day job. So I don't get to go to church every Sunday like the rest of my family does, but, it's been a really good thing. And I was baptized last year, for the first time for real, and gave my heart to Jesus Christ. And, that's where I live now, man. That's where I'm always going to be. And I'm happy to do it.
That's awesome, man. I really appreciate you talking about that. So let's get into some of the platform issues. Now, I've read through all of these, so I know a little bit about your positions on all of them. But for the people that are listening and watching, they may not have done that yet. So we're going to go through a few of them. So I wanted to start off with foreign policy,
Sure.
and I guess kind of the foreign welfare goes along with that. But can you address those two things in particular? Russia and Ukraine, what's going on over there? If you're president, what happens?
We're immediately ceasing all foreign aid to Ukraine. We're no longer taking part in that war at all. In fact, we won't even have any kind of opinion on it from the executive branch anymore. It will just be over for us. And a lot of people are going to say, "Oh, you support Russia," because I say that. No, I don't. I don't support Russia. I don't support Ukraine. In fact, I'm sick and tired of American money going overseas to fight wars that we have no place being in. NATO is an absolute disgrace. They have positioned themselves all around Russia and poke their fingers in the chest of the bear. And I don't think that America should be a part of that anymore. And I say in my platform, 12% of Americans are having problems putting food on the table every day. $20 a week is life-changing to somebody that's in that predicament. The middle class is not doing much better. They just aren't. Everybody is struggling to put food on the table, to keep a roof over their head. And we got kids starting out at McDonald's making $15 an hour, which is blowing my mind, right? I think that money is better served here. And I talk about, this foreign welfare parasite class, right? Over $200 billion a year. What is it? 200 billion? It might be more than that. Anyways, it goes to over 200 countries every year. We send billions and billions and billions of dollars to, including Israel, who does nothing for us, including Ukraine, who's doing nothing but, soaking up all of our military equipment and resources, and a bunch of other countries too, for pet projects, for national, international pet projects and such. But we have a homeless crisis here. We have a drug fentanyl crisis here. We have people that are working their asses off and trying to put food on the table. And the government's taking money from these people to send overseas to people who are fighting wars we have no business in. I'm tired. I am absolutely exhausted.
It's the government taking money from poor people here and giving it to rich people over there in other countries.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm exhausted, dude. I am just exhausted with this warfare state, this constant warfare state. Think back into your life, man. You're what, 28, 27, something like that?
I am 33, about to turn 34.
You're old, man. I'm 40. I just turned 40 in March. So I am old enough to run for president, in case anyone was wondering. I know I have good hair. I don't remember a time in my life when there wasn't a war going on that America was involved in, whether financially or boots on the ground or naval or Air Force. We've always been involved in a war. And, I talk about this in my platform. All of us watched in 1989, 90. We watched Iraq 1 on the TV as it was happening live. It was the first live war that any of us had ever watched. People say, "Oh, well, Vietnam was watched." Now, that was all recorded stuff that was brought back from Vietnam. We watched Iraq War 1 on the television, on MSNBC, on CNN. I mean, we watched the missiles and the bombs dropping. We saw it live. That had never happened before. And since that, that was probably my earliest wartime memory. Of course, that's not the only war we had been in by that point in my life. We have never not been in some kind of war. There's never been peace. And I don't know about you, man, but I don't know any Americans in my life that aren't sick and tired of the constant warfare state and giving a third of our budget every year to fight wars that we don't belong in. This is not foreign diplomacy anymore. It has not been foreign diplomacy for a long, long, long time. It's king-making in the Middle East. It's absolutely what it's been, right? It's destabilizing nations, trying to put the fear of the American military force in Iran, and taking one dictator out of positions to put our dictator that's going to work with us on the petro stuff, and then we have to go take him out a few years later and put another one in, and then we arm an insurgency, and then those guys become terrorists because we're over there blowing up their cousins and kids and dogs. And it's like, how long do you want this to go on for? Do you want it to continue to happen? Because that's what all of these politicians are doing. I don't care who they are. There's very few people in public office at the federal level that don't support the warfare state in some way or another, whether it be the military industrial complex and all the contractors, or the actual wars like the McCains of the world. It's sickening. I'm tired of it. The constant unneeded death and destruction of innocent people. 500,000 dead Iraqi children, dude. Is that worth it? Do you want to keep sending your money for that? Because it's happening in Ukraine and Russia now. It's going to continue to happen in all kinds of other countries as long as America keeps doing what we're doing foreign policy wise. And so it's time for it to stop. I'm ending all the wars. I'm ending them all. Everything that we're a part of is over. I'm starting to shut down international military bases that aren't seen as 100% needed for the safety of Americans, which are very few, very, very, very few. I'm bringing our troops home to spend time with their families. As you know, a vet dies by suicide every 8 minutes. It's not worth it to me anymore, man. I have had too many friends gone. I know that everybody who listens to this has lost a friend to suicide that has been in the military. Almost every single person that listens to this will have lost a friend. The cost is too high. I want more acute mental health for the troops that we bring home. I'm okay with spending whatever we have left in the budget after I cut the income tax to take care of the people that we bring home and hope that they can get back to normal in life with their families. And we're just done. That's it. We can look
and help them find a new purpose. I think that plays into it a lot too.
And I think we give it some time, of course, and then we look into how that has failed or succeeded, and then we go from there. But right now, the whole country is all about war. I mean, so much of these industries are propped up by the warfare state, and it's like some of these people are going to have to fail. Some of these war contractors, especially, they're going to have to fail for them to understand that the warfare state is not a money-making business anymore, but it's going to happen. And that's what I would do. I would from the executive branch, none of these wars are constitutional anyways. None of them have had congressional approval, not since I've been alive. Right. Except I think 2001 is the only time, right? And then we find out that the only way they got support for Afghanistan was through lies and propaganda and rosy pronouncements. Anyways, if you haven't Googled the Afghanistan papers, you should definitely do it right now, or at least when this is over, because our government knew it was an unwinnable war. They knew it was going to last 20 years. They did it anyways, and they lied to you and said that they could win it. And then they got defeated by a bunch of sheep herders with busted up AK-47s that lived in mountains, dude. And I just, I'm done. I'm done. I am fed up. I'm exhausted with the warfare state. If you're not paying enough attention, man. I mean that. There's not many veterans out there that won't tell you the same story. I assure you of that. Every once in a while you hear that one of those veterans, they're like, I'm a veteran, but I think there should be some gun regulations. That guy was probably a fobbit who never saw any kind of action, knew nothing about what was going on in the war, and didn't pay attention.
Those are my least favorite people, by the way.
Yeah, the very worst. They might as well just be British. I mean, honestly, at that point. So
we're ending all the wars.
Yeah, we're gonna stop sending money to other countries. We're gonna end all foreign aid, and that all plays into my income tax cut as well, where I would like to end the income tax entirely. That includes capital gains and the payroll tax and the estate tax. And then we can start looking into, cutting some of these sin taxes and of course, the federal gas tax and of course, tariffs are terrible for trade. And then we could start looking into how we fund the federal government, because here's the thing, man, the federal government always should have been funded through user fees, right? And GoFundMe asks, basically, right? So like, if there's nothing you need from the federal government, there's no reason why you should be paying the federal government. In no other industry in the world do you pay for something that you don't need, except for things that the government has their hand in and the government, right? And so I think we look at, we take a little time off from the income tax, and we start looking at funding the government through user fees. What are the things that people are actually using? This is how we fund it. Do we want a national defense system? Of course. Okay. So I know there's enough people in this country out of the 300 million people that live in this country. They're going to say, yes, we want national defense, and we'd be more than happy to pay $5 a month for a national defense. Okay. It's not that crazy to think that would happen. And I'm okay with that.
It's like a subscription service.
Yeah. And that's how, listen, national defense will defend us all. If half the people paid $5 a month, we'd have all we needed for national defense. You know what I mean? It's not that crazy to think that we could do that. And we got to stop paying these bloated pork bills that are going out to the Kennedy Space Center and whatever else the hell they're paying in all these bills. And we got to whittle away at this insane tax and spend system that we've been put under for, since at least the 1800s. And it's time to do that. And I'm the guy that'll do it. None of the Republicans and Democrats are going to do that. We know that. It's not going to happen. So yeah, those three all kind of playing together. I tell Nick Fuentes I said what's up, because I'm America first now. You know what I mean? And I mean it. I'm America first. I want my Americans, brothers and sisters, taken care of before we send money to any other country, before we fight any more wars that our citizens don't want to be a part of, and before we spend any more money on a federal government that doesn't do anything for us. Those are all America first policies. Workers should be keeping their own money. Americans should be keeping their own money, and wars need to cease. So that's where I'm at.
Sweet. Yeah. What are we doing with all the 3-letter agencies?
We're gonna start rolling those back immediately. The ATF's gone. That's part of my self-defense.
Yeah.
My self-defense platform. The ATF was never needed. Of course, the NFA, getting rid of the NFA is going to take away a lot of the need for the ATF anyways. Of course, all they really do is go after Americans who want to protect themselves. There's other agencies that we can look into. Of course, I think that the FBI and CIA are going to need drastic cuts at the minimum. But there's a lot of them. The Department of Education's out of here. I talk about that in my education policy. They have done nothing since the 80s. Spending on the Department of Education has more than quadrupled, while test scores, for these standardized tests have largely stayed the same and dropped. So what are we spending the money on? Kids were much smarter when they had their choice of school. Schools should be able to compete for children, right? Best curriculum, best price, best hours, whatever it is, they need to be competing for children. And that's how the market works. What
do you think about like an NFL draft system for that?
I just want schools. I want schools. First of all, if there's any money at all left for education from the federal government, which there won't be when we get rid of the Department of Education, it should follow the student and never the school, right? Like, so if you're homeschooling, you can get a credit or some cash back or whatever for the year. That's the only way that money from the federal government should be going to education anymore. It's done. I don't think it's needed. All these states are taking money for education through property taxes anyways. And every state has like an insane property tax at this point. So you're getting enough money anyways. You don't need the federal government to come in and tell you what to teach anymore, because the standardized shit doesn't work. People aren't standardized, man. Humans aren't standardized. Kids learn in different ways. Some kids might want to grow up and be a farmer. You know what I mean? I live in Iowa. There's a lot of kids here that are like, I just want to work the farm. I want to own the farm. And these farmers are making $10 million a year profit. You know what I mean? Great.
And we need farmers.
And we need people that are going to do things like that. And some people just want to be electricians.
Not everybody needs to be like a marketing executive.
Do you know how cool it would have been if I was a 14, 13-year-old kid and I had gotten to go to an electrical school at 13? By the time I was 18, I'd be a journeyman making $45-50 an hour, right? Like, there's no need for this ridiculous education program that we have in America being completely standardized across the board for every kid, unless you're on a what do they call it, a 503 plan or one of these special education plans, right? Like, every kid is treated exactly the same because of the Department of Education, because of the federal government, and it's got to stop. And it's the only way we're going to bring back a creative, hardworking, innovative society is to get rid of this standardized bullshit that's like dumbing half the students down and making it hard for the other half to succeed, right? So that's gone. That's probably one of my day one. I'm like, we don't need you anymore. Start selling your property. It's over. And I mean it. Like, the Department of Education Never was useful, but if it was, it's run out of its usefulness. It's done. Its course is run. It's over. Time to go back to some basics here with education, man.
So as far as the intelligence agencies go, are you for reform or more for eradicating them?
I'm for eradicating most of them. I mean, the FBI is basically only there to go and attack our own citizens. Of course, the ATF is. I've talked about my good friend and co-host on my show, AJ, will now be the head of the ATF as he sells off property to pay reparations to everybody who's ever had to buy an NFA tax stamp. And we mean that. We're really going to do that. And in fact, some of those people who are supposed to get those reparations may end up with some of the equipment that we're selling off. Who knows? But it's gone. The ATF should have never existed. There's no reason whatsoever to regulate alcohol, tobacco, and firearms in this country. I'm sorry. It's just not. It doesn't make any sense. Our country should not tell people how they can and can't defend themselves. It should not tell our country, our citizens what they are allowed to drink when it comes to alcohol. And they certainly shouldn't be. I mean, tobacco is just another plant, right? Look what happened when they started regulating tobacco in the United States. It used to be all natural, straight from the plant, rolled up in some, paper made out of trees and smoked. Now there's 170,000 chemicals in it. That all started after regulation. Come on, dude. You're not doing your job, and so they're gone. That's day one cutting the ATF. That's a day one policy issue for sure.
Let's go.
I mean that.
So this might be putting you a little bit on the spot, but as long as we're talking about guns and firearms and all that, what would you tell someone that is not, libertarian inclined or liberty inclined, as far as guns and all that, when it comes to like school and public shootings? Do you have any sort of answer to how we can prevent that, or if we can at all?
Sure, I have a policy plank that's geared really towards that for the people. And I've talked about this. All the gun alarmists, right? Like all the people that want to take away guns and abolish the Second Amendment. I'll tell you this, man, it's much easier for them to say, we just need to get rid of the guns and then go home and never do anything. Right. But I'll tell you, I looked it up the other day. 91% of school shooters are from fatherless homes. 91%. And if you're at all familiar with title of the Social Security, let's see, what is it? Title IVD. I always mess this one up.
Is it 4D?
No. Anyways, so I got on my phone here.
Okay.
I know what it is, and I'm just being an idiot about it. It's actually a policy point on my website. So if you guys go there, it's under the parental rights section of my platform. And it's title IVD, I think, it's title IVD. I was right. Of the Social Security Administration. Is basically, this is how it works. So every state that has a child support program, for every $2 that they spend on the child support program, they get $3 back from Social Security. Okay. So they're incentivized to separate homes, to separate families, collect child support from one person and give it to another person, and they get $1 for every dollar they collect, basically. Okay. This is huge. If you're not familiar with this is huge. Ever since that has been instituted, we have seen fatherless homes increase, tenfold. 71% of violent crimes in America are committed by fatherless people, fatherless children. That's saying a lot, right? And if you look at some other stats too, some of these school shooters, Audrey Hale passed her initial target, was not a gun-free zone. She passed by it to go to the church school in Tennessee. And that's not the only person that has done that. In fact, I believe the Aurora, Colorado shooter did that. There was a large number of school shooters that had actually passed by their initial targets because they weren't gun-free zones and went to a gun-free zone to carry out their crimes. But the number one problem in America today, in my opinion, is fatherless homes or single parent homes. And, people are like, geez, Josh, how could that be? Well, look at the stats. Look at the stats of fatherless children, man. It's bad. It's the worst highest stats for some of these things I've ever seen, including violent crime, including school shootings, including incarcerated youth. I mean, it really does breed a generation of violence. And if you look at the violent stats in America, as single parent homes have risen, violent crimes have risen right along with it on the same exact line. I mean, it's uncanny how immediately, by looking at those stats, you can tell what the problem is. You can tell what the issue is. When you grow up with no positive role model in your life because he's constantly treated like a visitor in your life, which is what our courts do to men 92.3% of the time, it's the mother who ends up with full custody of the child. Let me tell you something. One in four children lives in a fatherless home. 1 in 4 children. You can't tell me that 1 in 4 dads are bad. Okay. You won't ever convince me of that. That's bullshit. It's not how it works. What it is 1 in 4 dads has been divorced. Probably has a ex-wife who would like to use the system against them to get money and do these things. And
Vindictive.
Vindictive, and probably not 1 in 4. That's I don't want to skew it the other way either, but a lot of them. And have a court system that will help them drag father through the mud on purpose. And in fact, the whole time, all they're doing is harming their child. And so I want to take those incentives away to have fatherless homes that the state governments get is an incentive to create this situation, and put the incentive back on staying together for your children or learning how to peacefully co-parent because you're stuck with them. Equal parenting time across the board, unless there's an absolute reason to not have equal parenting time. There has never, ever, ever been any reason in this world that a father or a mother should be treated like a visitor to their child without some kind of, warranting issue. And so getting rid of that Title IVD is probably the biggest step that we could take to ending school shooting, to reducing crime, to, bringing back the nuclear family and kids doing better in school and kids getting along better with their peers. And, family life is where everything starts for every human on this planet. And so that's my number one thing. I'm not going to capitulate on the gun regulation issue at all to any leftists or Democrats or Moms Demand Action or anybody. I will never in my life capitulate because I think you're wrong. I think that a armed society is a polite society. And if you look at the places where guns are outlawed, they are not polite, buddy. They are very, 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 very bad. People are shot all the time. There's all kinds of high gun violent crimes. And that's where it happens. It's always in the place with the most restrictive gun rights. Chicago, Oakland, California, New York City. These places people get shot and gunned down every day. And you're telling me that I should be the one that can't carry a gun? No. These kids are running around with 50 round magazines in their Glock Gen 4 Glocks with an illegal switch on it to make it fully automatic. And you're telling me that the NCIS is working? You're telling me that it's working? It's not working. It's not helping anybody. It's making me so I can't go get a switch, right? And defend myself with one. And so all that stuff's got to go, man. It's not helping our society. In fact, it's making it worse. And I'm not afraid to tell anybody that to their face. Nobody.
I love that because it's getting to the root of the problem instead of slapping a Band-Aid on the issue. Absolutely.
It's the number one problem facing Americans today is torn apart fatherless homes or single parent homes. It's the number one problem. And if you refuse to see that, that's on you. But the stats are there. They are undeniable, in fact. Undeniable. If you go and look at them, the number one problem of facing Americans is fatherless homes. Everything stems from there. Everything. Debate me on it. I dare you.
Well, let's get into COVID a little bit in the COVID regime. So what went wrong with how that was handled, and how would you handle it better?
I think the better question is what went right and how it was handled, right? Because everything from the very beginning was handled wrong. And you're gonna hate me, Republicans, but you guys didn't do much better. Thankfully, I did have one of the governors that was decent on the whole thing, and I praise her to death. I think that Reynolds is amazing. Kim Reynolds for Iowa is absolutely amazing. I'm not running against her. That's for damn sure. But, you know, DeSantis shut down Florida, dude. All these people are like, oh, DeSantis was perfect. No, DeSantis shut down Florida. They had checkpoints to get into the state, dude.
He wasn't better. He wasn't perfect, but he was better.
He was better, right? But everybody sucked. Everybody sucked. You know, I think probably the only real governor that didn't ever do anything was the North Dakota governor, right? And so, you know, it was very clear early on to anybody who had been alive for 9/11 and saw the aftermath of 9/11 that this was being used much the same way. Now, I'm not saying that everybody knew right away that this virus wasn't very bad. I'm not saying that everybody knew right away that the COVID vaccine wasn't going to be a good thing and the way they rolled it out was going to be such a mess. But I am telling you that if you've ever watched a national emergency in real life, in real time, you knew that the government was going to use it to their advantage for all kinds of bad shit. It's how we got the Patriot Act, man. You know, it really is. It's how we got the a bunch of these NDAA bills. It's all used to use the safety of the population as a fork and a cudgel to get past all your terrible tyrannical plans. And anybody who says that that's a conspiracy theory is either doesn't know what they're talking about at all or is evil. That's the only outcomes from saying that those are conspiracy theories. That's the truth. That's what our government has always done for 100 years. So, you know, either you don't know your history or you support these tyrannical measures and you're an evil person. And I can tell you for sure that, you know, we are going to investigate. Should you guys be crazy enough to put me in the White House, which is where, you know, people like me actually belong there. You know that? It's not these high society, rich elites that have never lived in your shoes. But if you're crazy enough to put me there, we're going to investigate Fauci. We're going to investigate the SAFER. We're going to investigate the federal COVID task force and Pfizer, and all of these people who have been a part of this crazy COVID regime are going to be investigated, and we're going to prosecute them. I'm going to push that they're prosecuted to the fullest extent for crimes against humanity. I have never in my life, and like I said, I lived through 9/11. Okay, I saw all the shit that came after 9/11. I saw this, you know, the start of TSA. We used to be able to just walk. My mom used to be able to walk me as a child up to the airplane gate and put me on the airplane. Okay. I watched some crazy shit happen in my life. Never anything like the COVID stuff. It was so disgusting to watch them tell people that they had to be shunned from society. And, you know, you couldn't go to your parents' funeral and you couldn't visit your dying grandma in the hospital. And it's like, you couldn't go to work and you couldn't feed your family. And when it was all over, oh, since you were such a good, hardworking person through all this last 2.5 years, here's $600 for you. Like, really? Cool, dude. I lost out on $1,600 between Monday and Tuesday. You know what I mean? Yep. And so I want these people investigated, man. I want to know who played what role in shutting down our society and ruining our economy and hurting people's lives and killing people. You know, this stuff, a lot of it was, you know, governors like Cuomo putting, you know, old people, sick people in with old people. Of course they were going to die. We knew that old people were more susceptible to this. We knew that fat people were more susceptible to this. We knew that people with diabetes and heart problems were more susceptible to this. Everybody knew that. They were talking about it on the TV right away.
Dude, how he evaded accountability on that is beyond me.
I'm just Italian, but it's cool. You know, and so, yeah, man, these guys, they got to go away. They got to get some penance. And there's some people who don't just belong in Gitmo. They belong under Gitmo. And I want to put together a committee that's going to go and investigate these obvious crimes against humanity and prosecute these people. And I mean it. I mean it 100%. They deserve to be prosecuted and put away.
Let's go. Love it. One of the last things that I want to get into is transgender ideology and all of that you have under your child protection tab under your platform issues.
Sure. Listen, man, we talked a little bit about healthcare with veterans, which I think is very important. I think that if we're ever going to have a polite society again, when we bring all the vets home that have been, you know, fighting wars for the last 20, 30 years, they're going to need some serious healthcare to get back to normal and to understand that, you know, war is not good for the country because that's all they've known, right? But what we didn't really talk about is the absolute insanity of the current healthcare system in the United States in general. all my life, I went to nursing school. A lot of people don't know this about me. I went to nursing school to get my LPN. It's a very small level nursing license, like LPN or LVN, whatever you call it in your state. I got it in Oregon. We had to go through psychology classes and stuff like that. We learned a lot about psychology. And one of the normal themes of psychology, one of the reoccurring themes of psychology is that when you're working with somebody with mental health issues, the best course of action is to always try to get them to come to terms with the reality of their situation. Okay. Because, healthcare is a scale from I have anxiety because I think all these bad things are going to happen to me, to I am completely disconnected from reality and I live in a complete alternate reality. Okay. That's the scale in healthcare, right? And from the bottom of that scale to the top of that scale is people dealing with things that aren't reality, right? It's anxiety. I'm an anxiety sufferer. I've had anxiety since I got out of the military in 2005. It's gotten worse as I got older. I've been learning how to deal with it much better in my 30s. But it always stemmed around things that weren't actually happening. It wasn't like, it was like, oh, there's something wrong with my heart, or do I got throat cancer? It's always something that's not actually happening. It's just something that you think in your head is happening. And that's a very mild form of not living in reality, all the way up to schizophrenia and absolute psychopathy, which is living completely outside of reality. And all of the answers for these healthcare problems, all of the remedies for these healthcare problems include getting people to come to terms with reality. That's got to be the basis of healthcare, of mental healthcare. Right? It's got to be getting people to come to terms with and be okay with the reality of who they are and what their situation is. If you're not actively working as a healthcare professional to get people that are living outside of reality to live back in reality, you're not doing your fucking job, and you should quit today. Period. And I want to preface this with, as an adult, I don't care what you do with your own body, man. I don't care. I don't care if your name is Jim and you want everyone to call you Jenny and put on a wig. I don't care if you want to graft a forearm dick to your forehead and walk around like that, as long as you have underwear on your forehead when you're around my children. You know what I mean? Because they don't need to see your forearm dick on your forehead, right? I don't care what you do, man. But when you start getting into this process, and a lot of people tell you, oh, you're crazy. That's not actually happening. Bullshit, dude. All of us know that doctors are pushing these medications on kids that are irreversible. Okay. These basically hormone growth blockers, right? We know they're causing irreversible damage, and we don't even know the extent of the irreversible damage because they've been around not so long enough to have like long-term safety and efficacy data, right? Just like the COVID vaccine didn't. So we don't even know the full extent, but we do know that doctors are prescribing this stuff to minors under the age of 18, under 16, under 13 years old. We do know that there's people already doing these surgeries, pushing these surgeries, and they're a vanity project. And it might as well be the most evil plastic surgeon you've ever met, laying on piles of cash like Scrooge McDuck, chopping off boobs of 15-year-old girls so they can go around and call themselves Peter, dude. Okay. That has got to stop in this country, because listen, when I was a kid, if you were depressed and bored and didn't feel like you fit in, you just became an emo kid. Okay. And then you got through your emo stage and then you got better. And that's what happens. We all have a phase like that, dude. You can go, I challenge you to find my old MySpace. Okay. When I was the lead singer of all kinds of screamo bands and I had crazy hair, and you could probably even find some pictures of me wearing eyeliner once in a while. Okay. When I was a singer in a band.
I played guitar in a pop punk band. So
yeah, I played bass in pop punk bands. I still love pop punk music. Okay?
Hell yeah.
But we all have these phases, right? When I was about 10 years old, my sister was about 5 years old. She came out of my room one time and she was wearing my skate shirt. It was like the old striped shirts with the solid colored sleeves and a hood on it, but it was like a t-shirt and like a pair of my Jinkos and a pair of my skate pants, right? And she came out and she said, everyone's going to call me Kevin now. I want to be Kevin. 5 years old. And this went on for like 9 days. My sister wanted to be called Kevin, and she was a boy now, and that was it. And when that 9th day was up, she was playing with Barbies in her room, dude. You know what I mean? She was not transgender. She's just a kid doing kid shit. This is what happens. It's all part of growing up, man. We all do stuff like that. And now we're in a place where we have adults who are mentally unwell. I mean, I'm not saying all transgender people are completely mentally unwell, but it's probably a large majority of people that don't feel like their body is their actual body probably aren't mentally well. And that's not mean to say.
Personally, I think that's a prerequisite for it.
Sure. I don't think that's mean to say. I think it's normal to say that. And I think that a lot of, at least my trans homies, I got homies that are trans that are conservative, and they say the same thing. Like, yeah, I'm not normal. It's not a normal thing. And I'm trans identified, but I'm not actually a man, right? Or I'm not actually a woman. They know, but like, we have these adults with these mental health issues that are pushing to have kids treated the same as them because they want to feel like part of the in-group. It's like you already had problems feeling like part of the in-group, so you became a different gender and you're doing this, and now you're pushing to have kids do this stuff, and you're evil. You're an evil person if you're pushing to have kids do this stuff. So I want to treat the doctors, and I have a similar frame of mind when it comes to abortion. I don't want to, it's not that I want to go and prosecute women who want to terminate their pregnancies. I would like to go and prosecute doctors who perform these murders, right? But I feel the same way about this transgender ideology and issue, that pushing it on kids as a doctor should be a crime punishable the same as a federal crime for child sex trafficking. Okay, if you're using a child to make money on an issue that better on, biology, psychology, that what you're doing is wrong, we're going to put you in jail. That's where you belong. That's where you belong. And I believe that 100%. And a lot of people say that's my most non-libertarian view, but I disagree. I think that no matter what framework of society we live under, even if we got rid of the whole government and we lived in little awesome Hapa communities and the Liechtenstein that you want to be in, that community would still have to be responsible for taking care of people who harm children, period. Or I'm not going to live there, or I'm going to fight everybody that lives there. And so
I think with libertarians, the caveat is whether or not you're dealing with an adult or a minor.
Sure.
As the libertarians, if you're dealing with adults, you believe adults have the right to do whatever they want to their body,
Right. Yeah, like I said, graft a forearm dick to your forehead, man. I don't care.
Yeah.
You're gonna hate yourself in 10 years from now. I'm watching this. I'm watching a lot of these detransitioners, and I feel terrible for them because a lot of them started real young at 17, 16 years old. They were lied to about all kinds of stuff, and now they have all these issues. And I follow a lot of them on Twitter, and they're brave. Though I think detransitioners are much more brave than people who decide that they're a different gender someday. I think
100%.
These people that are able to kind of disconnect from the ideology and say, you know what, it harmed me. It made things really bad for me. And then they get attacked by their old friends and colleagues and stuff like that for coming out as, hey, this really hurt me.
Excommunicated,
we shouldn't be doing this to children. Like, that's brave. That's fucking brave to me. And I want to see more people that are having those issues. I don't want to see more people have those issues. Don't get me wrong. But I want to see more people that are having those issues come and say it out loud and say, this is what you're going to have happen to you if you do these things, because we got to stop messing with the kids. I said it in my bio. I said it in my platform. Messing with our children is the linchpin of the powder keg, dude. You pushed us around for a long time with your Antifa shit and calling us all Nazis. And anytime we disagreed with communism, we were Nazis. But now you're pushing a gender ideology on our children through schools, through public displays of all kinds of terrible shit. We're done with it. We are absolutely done with it. And whether the government settles it or we settle it, it will be settled at some point, because you're pulling at the wrong powder keg. I promise you, children are off limits, period. And I would like to be a solution, not a problem, because I don't want violence in my streets. I want a peaceful resolution. Always, you should always want a peaceful resolution. And peaceful people are some of the scariest people, because when they're not peaceful anymore, it's because you push them too far. And I'd like to be the solution. I think that is a solution. If you're a doctor that's pushing these things on children, jail right away.
It's like that. Do you watch Parks and Rec?
Portland. That was from Portlandia, I think, actually, wasn't it?
Okay.
Maybe it was Parks. No, it was Parks and Rec. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, there's that Venezuelan representative that comes. And he's like,
it was Fred, whatever. Fred Armiston. He's on Portlandia. Yeah. That's why I got him mixed up. But that's I mean it. Like, if you're doing these things, jail. I don't care, dude. Like, I don't care anybody who talks to me about it and says that I'm not a libertarian. Fine, don't call me a libertarian, but I am running as a libertarian presidential candidate. So, say what you want, but I believe that people who fuck with children need to go to jail.
Yep, 100%. And I think I think and I hope that there's going to be a national reckoning in the next 10 years as far as detransitioners go, because you're going to have these people coming out of the woodwork, and basically, if you get enough of them, it's going to be a real problem for the narrative on this.
Oh
And I
yeah.
hope that that happens in the next 10 years, you know?
I think it's going to happen in the
Um,
next 3 to 4, maybe 5 years max. I think we'll see a mass movement of that. I do.
yeah, and
Um,
as far as the doctors, I think they found their new cash cow,
that's
right?
what it is, dude. Same thing happened
The
with
hospital,
breast implants. It happened with nose jobs. It happens with, these people are like, oh, dude, we can make billions of dollars for this industry. And, I think if COVID taught us one thing, it's that depending on an industry that depends on you being sick is a really bad idea.
yeah, these hospital systems, and there's also the pharmaceutical side to this. They both create a lifelong patient out of this, you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely. Absolutely.
So
Especially if you stay sick.
there's money to be made there, and I think that's the driving force behind. Well, I think there's two driving forces, right? I think there's the money aspect, as far as like doctors making these decisions, like boards making these decisions. I think money is a driving force, and then I think not that they're possessed, but they are definitely influenced by evil. You know, so I think those two things are playing a lot into it.
Yeah, and I will say, as a presidential candidate, I am working on a healthcare plan with people much smarter than me when it comes to actual healthcare policy and stuff like that. I'm also working on a really cool energy plan with a gentleman who spent the last 8 years studying a way to get us off the OPEC dollar and onto what he calls the kilowatt dollar, by selling very cheap nuclear energy through battery cells. It's a really cool idea, man. It would basically take 40 Gen 4 or less Gen 4 nuclear reactors, nuclear plants, to power the entire country. And then we could start selling surplus energy to other countries through battery banks, and then get on what he would call the kilowatt dollar instead of OPEC, the petrodollar. And man, the way he laid it out, and he spent 8 years writing about this. I mean, this is what his life's work. So I think that policy is going to be really cool. Of course, we'll put that out when I understand it fully. He's much smarter than me, but I actually really enjoy it. And even
That's
if we
really
put it,
interesting. Yeah,
yeah, even if we put it out as a theoretical for America to chomp on for a minute and figure out if it's something that they'd like to do, I think it's really great. But it also is going to help the Bitcoin market hugely, right? The crypto market to do that stuff. And working on an abortion plank as well. I think that, while I hate the issue because it's such a wedge issue in America, I do believe that me being a pro-life candidate needs to be talked about, why I'm pro-life and what I think should happen to people that kill babies. So, yeah, man, I'm going to talk about these things, the way that I'm going to talk about them. And I just hope that people will support me and get behind me and understand that, I'm just like you guys, but I'm pick up the sword and go fight.
yeah. We're coming up on an hour and 20. So where can people find you, Josh?
Cool. Well, you can follow me on Twitter. That's where I'm at war with all the other blue checks. That's Joshua at large. So at Joshua at large, all spelled out. And of course, my campaign website is joshuasmith2024.com. You can find
I have that.
yeah, you can find my planks there. Of course, you can find the media request form there. You can find the volunteer request form there. So if you want to volunteer for the campaign, you can sign up there. Of course, we have an email list now. So if you want to get updates through your email, you can sign up for the email list there. And we also got a form to send money to the campaign, which, by the way, we're up against two financial juggernauts. If you want us to make an impact, even if you don't want to vote for us, but you want to make an impact for libertarian or ideals in the United States, funding campaigns like this is absolutely imperative. This is really, truly a for the people campaign. And funding us helps us get close to that 5% mark. So funding is important. Please help us out. I hate asking for money, but it's important. And what else? That's pretty much it, man. You can find my podcast on YouTube at Joshua Smith, or no, sorry, youtube.com/Fight the Despots, DSPOTS. It's called Break the Cycle with Joshua Smith. You can look it up. I think we got 220 episodes now or something like that. And there's a bunch of other episodes that you can watch that were after hours episodes too, if you become a member of the channel there. So
Awesome. Well, like I said at the very beginning of this podcast, I think we're kindred spirits. Guys, if you go to his website, which is Joshua Smith 2024, there's an issues tab if you want to read more on what he thinks about certain topics. That's pretty much it, man.
We will have individual videos coming out for all the topics that we drop as well.
Real sweet.
We also have a Dan Smott's campaign video coming out soon, hopefully within the next week. So we got some media. We're going to be a media heavy campaign. We're going to roll out a lot of media over the next year, 2 years. And so if you want to help us fund that, that's what you would be helping fund, is a media heavy messaging campaign. And, we appreciate the help, man. And I appreciate you having me on, Casey. Really means a lot to me, buddy.
Yeah, man. I really appreciate the conversation. And like I said earlier, kindred spirits, and I'm really impressed with all of your positions. So
thanks, sir.
I wish you the best moving forward, and I'll definitely be in your corner. Guys, if you will subscribe and like and do all that kind of jazz, it really helps out.
Help my man Casey get to 100 subscriptions tonight.
Tonight. We can do it. Yeah. All right, guys. Appreciate you coming out. Thanks.
Thanks, buddy.